Hey everybody, this is Jeff Searle again. Today we're going to make a nice video on how to do air layers, and specifically air layers on Crotons. And a brief little history on what exactly is an air layer. It's when you want to propagate a piece of a plant, like a stem, and you want to injure it by taking off the outside bark of the trunk or the stem, remove it, put some sphagnum moss and either some aluminum foil or plastic, and what that does is the plant tells itself it's injured and it needs to reproduce, so therefore it puts roots out. And usually this takes in the summertime when it's warm out, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe a couple months on some of the slower varieties. And once that ball of roots, and we'll show you an older one that's already been rooted out and established, how we remove it from the mother plant and pot it up. But for today we're just going to show how you can do an air layer and propagate and start a new plant. And you can do this on not just Crotons, but on other tropical trees. You can do branches and other plants of woody stems. So anyways, first off, I want to show you a couple books that were written by my dear friend Dr. Frank Brown. And this one is the original book that was printed in 1960, so it's almost 60 years old. It's a very hard book to come by. There's not many color photos in here. It's mostly black and white with a few pictures and a few colored leaves of some of the varieties. And this was printed in 1960. Again, this was by Dr. B. Frank Brown, who was the leading authority up until he passed away a few years ago. And he was in South Florida here, good friend of mine. And then in the early 90s, he put out a much nicer book, more comprehensive. There's his autograph when he dated it. And this book has a lot of beautiful colored pictures and all the named varieties. And this one you can still find in some of the bookstores and on Amazon or wherever you look for books. So anyways, it's some nice books to have for your reference. So today we are going to do an air layer, like I said, and there's a couple tools you can use. Probably the most common you can find would be a razor blade, a knife, to cut the bark off, okay? And this is just a razor blade. This is a tool you can find at any hardware store. It's a little tricky to use, got to be very careful. Razor blades are very sharp. But I have these scissors that, again, my dear friend B. Frank Brown years ago passed on to me, and I'm very, very grateful to have these. And these are specifically made for doing air layers. You can see the blades have this notch for going around the stem, and then it has these little notches on the handles here, and that's for when you squeeze around the bark to rip the outside bark away. And I'm going to show you that right now in a minute. So these are very special scissors I have. Not sure if you can find them anywhere to buy, but anyways, they speed the process up a real lot. So today we're going to show you an air layer, or how to take one on this Croton. This is an old variety that was started, and so what we're going to do is this is another way, instead of doing tip cuttings in a bag or under mist in a propagation house. This is a way where if you have some big plants and you have some long stems, this is a good way to propagate it, and then start by when you remove it and pot it up into a pot of soil, and you're going to start with a big piece. So I like to start with pieces that are about 2 to 3 feet long. If you can find one that you want to remove and propagate, make sure you have some stem here that we can do. So I like to get my scissors out, and I'm going to make a cut with the open circle section here. And real easy, we just go back and forth a couple times, and you can see the line here, and we come down about an inch, inch and a half below that, and we make another circle, and then we put the scissors over on top of that, and that's where these little notches on the shank or the handles of the scissors, and we just squeeze it like a pair of pliers, and and it just rips the bark right off very cleanly, as you can see. All right, so now we have the clean bark here, and it's all ready for the sphagnum moss. So it's that simple. If you were to use your knife or razor blade, you'd basically do the same thing. We'll do one down here, and you would just make a cut all the way around the stem like this and join it together. Come down about another inch or so, make another cut. Okay, but then you're going to have to scratch the bark off, and this takes a little more time, but it's pretty easy. I recommend you cut away from yourself. Don't ever cut in, because you're going to cut your finger. And the bark of a croton comes off pretty easy, and you want to then make sure you go underneath and you get all this brown cambium bark off like that, and you're basically all set to go. And like I said, this is a lot harder to use, but it can be done, providing you just don't have the scissors that I have. So now you're ready to wrap this open cut with the sphagnum moss. So over here I have my bucket, and you'll see in other videos people use clear cellophane plastic and string and all kinds of things. I like to use aluminum foil. It's a little more expensive, but I do a lot of air layers every summer here. Out of my yard, I have approximately maybe 600 or 700 croton plants on my 2 acres, and I'll do anywhere from 800 to maybe as many as 1,500 air layers in one summer. I'll come home in the evening after work at the nursery, and I'll put on 50 or 60, which takes not a lot of time, within an hour with my scissors. It speeds it all up. I get my aluminum, I cut them in pieces about probably 6 inches square, okay? And then I use sphagnum moss, and you have to wet this because it comes dry in a bale. And again, you can pick this up at a lot of garden stores and shops in your neighborhood, the big box stores, pretty much anywhere you look for supplies. And you want to wet it down, sometimes overnight, and then you squeeze out the excess water, and you want just a good fistful of moss, okay? About like that. And you put it in the aluminum foil. And you just take the aluminum over, find your stem, and you're just going to wrap it around that injured cut we made, and you twist it around on each end to get it nice and secured. And there you have it. It's an air layer that's done pretty easy and pretty quick. And again, providing it's in the summer months when it's nice and warm, this croton, this variety, this will probably root out in about 4 to 6 weeks. And what I like to do when I'm getting ready, thinking that they're ready to harvest and cut off, I would come and I would squeeze the moss or squeeze the aluminum. And if it feels real soft, then I know it's still full of moss and no roots. You'll come up in a couple months and you'll feel this, and it'll be real rock hard. And that tells me that there's a lot of roots in that sphagnum moss, and it's ready to cut off or harvest off. And I'll get my clippers and then cut it off here. And we'll show you that in another later in the video. So there's your air layer of a nice 2 to 3 foot long croton, and it's all ready to go. Thank you. All right, after walking around in the garden, I found one here. This certain variety is called plaid oak. This is a green and yellow with some nice pink mixed into it. It's actually one of my favorites, not a real fast one. So anyways, here's a air layer that was done approximately 3 months ago. And as you can see, like I said, it's pretty hard. You take the moss, the aluminum off, and what you have is a nice ball of roots that have grown into this sphagnum moss. So very simple. I get my clippers out, and you're going to clip it below the root ball. Okay, that's all. And I'll just explain something real little. I've done a couple here I took off, and so these exposed stems now, with the hot weather and the rains and fertilizer, this will now send out anywhere from 1 to maybe, on this variety, 1 to 3 new heads or shoots, and start all over again. And those in my area here once they start growing and become bigger and bigger, they'll be approximately ready to do maybe next summer, a year from now, or in 2 years. Okay, so we have a beautiful air layer, as you can see, and again, this is a couple feet long. You're going to start with a really nice plant. Here's my potting soil that I use in the nursery, and it's a real organic mix. It's got some black dirt, it's got pine bark in it, it's got about 10 to 15% sand, and some cypress wood particles in it for drainage, and some perlite. That's the little white stuff that is great for drainage. Today I'm going to pot this Croton up in a 2-gallon pot, which is what I like to use. So just get some dirt in there, and I like to fill it up most of the way, all the way to the top. Okay, right about there. And what we're going to do then, because these roots are pretty hard, you don't have to really worry about damaging them. I like to stick that down in there into the soil, right about at the level of the dirt. Pat your dirt down and get it nice and firm. And then over here is my, this is a slow release fertilizer. And you can buy this in a lot of your department stores and where you get your gardening supplies from, big box stores. This is, I'm going to say, this is dynamite. You can get this at the Home Depot stores if you live here in the United States. And it's a slow release. It's similar to Osmocote. If you use Osmocote, same thing, okay? Slow release, very safe for the plant, will not burn the roots. So I like to, I've got approximately about 3 to 4 tablespoons in this little cup. And I like to just spread it around the root system just like that. And then I will fill up the rest of the dirt in the pot. I like to get it all the way to the top, firmly packing that down. Okay, very simple. And there you have a new Croton. And you're starting off with a really beautiful sized plant. And really the last thing you need to do is take it over to your garden hose and give it a good water. And then you would place it not out in the full direct sun. You want to place it in the garden somewhere in the shade. And just keep your eye on it, keep it moist. And probably in about 3 to 4 months, which is pretty quick, this will be rooted enough. When that ball of roots hits that fresh soil, it starts picking up that slow release fertilizer, the warm weather and the climate. This will root out real well in 3 to 4 months, where you can actually go ahead and get it ready to plant in your garden. You tip it upside down, hold your hand here by the stem, I like to, and tap on the bottom of the pot, and it'll pull out pretty good. If you're not real sure, give it another couple months, or wait till you see some roots coming out the bottom of the hole. So this is doing a Croton air layer, and please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to make some more new ones. This one was on Croton. A lot of people know me for my palms, so we're going to make some more palm videos coming up real soon, and some other things. So please subscribe, and I'll see you shortly. Thank you.